so let's get started. My name is Rita Larkin. I'm the Communications Director for the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. I'm really excited to be here with Tom Davis today. He's a wildlife biologist with the Blue Ridge Parkway and the National Park Service. He is going to tell us today about one of my favorite programs that donors to the foundation support, and those are the wildlife camera traps that we have up and down the parkway to help that biologist study all the wildlife that we get to see occasionally, but maybe not all the time. So I am going to hand it over to Tom, and he'll tell you a little bit about himself, and then he will tell you about all the great wildlife on the parkway.
All right, good morning, everyone. Let me see if I can get the PowerPoint presentation up. Jordan, Rita, do you see that?
Sure do.
Awesome. You'll hit from beginning. Yeah, perfect.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Like Rita said, my name is Tom Davis. I'm a wildlife biologist here in the Blue Ridge Parkway. And I'm going to talk to you today about a project I'm really passionate about here on the Parkway, camera traps, citizen science, and the Blue Ridge Parkway. And as Rita said, I've worked for the National Park Service for about 35 years. I got my start working for the Youth Conservation Corps at Great Falls National Park in Northern Virginia in high school. And I spent about 3 summers working for the YCC, doing trail work and just maintenance projects. And there was also a big environmental component. YCC, we worked a lot with rangers, learning about the natural and the historical aspects of the park. My last summer with the YCC, the summer between graduating high school and starting college, the park actually hired me as a park aide. So for the first time, I got to wear the National Park Service uniform, and I was hooked. And I pretty much knew from that point on what I wanted to do as a career. Since that time, I've had the opportunity to work as a forestry technician, doing interpretation, working visitor centers, and doing nature walks and talks. Doing my first permanent position was doing feed collection, working the entrance station to Prince William Forest Park in Northern Virginia. I've worked as a wildland firefighter and as a brief stint, 3 or 4 years, as a law enforcement ranger. But my passion has always been for the biological side of things. And in 1994, I accepted a position here on the Blue Ridge Parkway as a biologist. And my role here in the Parkway is kind of twofold. I'm one of 2 wildlife biologists here in the Parkway. I coordinate the game species aspect of the wildlife, things like animals like black bear, white-tailed deer, coyote. We have elk and wild hog on the southern end of the Parkway where we border Great Smoky Mountains. And then I'm also the program manager for the park's agricultural lands program. We lease out about 4,000 acres to adjacent farmers along the parkway in order to preserve the rural farm scene. And so I work with those farmers to develop best management practices and make sure that the resources, the wetlands and the streams and the rare, threatened, and endangered species within those sites are protected. I also have a fascination with photography. For as long as I can remember, I've had a camera in my hands, and certainly working here on the Parkway, a park that's world renowned for its scenic vistas, that hasn't discouraged my interest in photography whatsoever. Those who know me and those who work with me know I'm rarely without a camera in my hand. So it's really little wonder that I found a way to kind of incorporate my interest in wildlife and photography into these wildlife camera traps. Scientists use a variety of tools to study the world around us. Microbiologists use microscopes. Geographers use GPS units linked to satellites. Astronomers, of course, use telescopes. And so these camera traps are just another way that we use to study the world around us. Over the past 10 or 15 years, these camera traps have really reinvented the way we conduct wildlife science. It's having profound implications in our study of wildlife. These camera traps allow us to understand population trends, distribution of wildlife, habitat preferences, behavior, community dynamics, periods of activity, and species association within a lot of these communities. The photos that we capture from these camera traps represent data, which is what we all know is what scientists are interested in. They allow us to ask questions, test hypotheses. There are currently thousands of these camera trap studies going on across the globe. These cameras can be spread out in grids over transects and can capture tens and thousands of photos of animals. Each image represents which a species living at a specific location, at a specific moment in time. The photos allow us to confirm the identity of a species. In most cases, we'll talk about that. And sometimes we can even identify individual animals based on color patterns, facial markings. And then most of these modern day cameras will record a timestamp on the bottom of the photo with the date and time, so we know when that animal was present at that site. So these camera traps are not elaborate devices by any stretch of the imagination. They're nothing more than cameras that we set out in the field that take pictures or videos every time it detects an animal. The cameras use a passive infrared sensor that detects movement and changes in temperature. And the way I try to get people to think about these cameras is just think about the infrared beam is basically an invisible flashlight beam. And every time an animal or something crosses in front of that beam, it causes the camera to trigger and take a photo. These cameras can be programmed to operate 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, or during just certain periods of the day. If anyone caught Peter Hamill's talk a couple months ago on, a lot of his talk focused on time-lapse photos that he's done along the Parkway. And so these cameras can certainly be programmed to take time-lapse photos as well. The cameras will take daytime color photos. The infrared lenses will take black and white photos at night. So there are some cameras that have incandescent flashes that will take color nighttime photos. However, for our purposes, we stick with the black and white photos because the infrared flashes do not disturb the animals as much as the other flashes do. And these cameras can also be programmed to take video. And I did not point out before, but if you do have audio on your computer, you might want to turn it up because it does make some of these videos pretty cool. This is a bobcat that we detected, I guess, 2 years ago at one of our trap sites. So the park purchased our very first trail camera around 2007. It was a really early model. We were having a farmer permit holder in one of our agricultural tracts who was having some issue with bears getting into his cornfield. And so I talked my supervisor into allowing us to purchase our first camera. And then the photos the two bear photos you see on the right there are the very first trail camera photos we ever caught on the Parkway. So really cool. This was the first night we set out the camera. So it really encouraged me to pursue this. In 2010, we worked with the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation, who gave us a grant that allowed us to purchase about 12 or 15 more of these cameras. And we spent the next several years really just kind of setting these cameras up all up and down the Parkway, just kind of experimenting, trying to see, if they, how useful they might be, how practical they would be, what kind of time constraints we, would involve setting these things up. And we were just really, floored at the photos we got, we captured with these cameras, and the ease with which we were able to capture a lot of the photos we got. So it really kind of encouraged us to pursue this thing. These camera traps are really relatively non-invasive. We don't have to capture an animal to get these photos. The animal basically just kind of leaves without you even really realizing most times that the cameras are even there. So in 2015, we decided to up the ante a little bit. And again, the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation, a grant that allowed us to purchase 35 more of these cameras. And we decided to take a much broader look at the animals up and down the parkway, trying to look at the distribution, relative abundance of the medium and larger animals that we have, how elevation and human activities influence the distribution of these species. We really wanted to help the public gain a greater appreciation for the biodiversity along the parkway, and really trying to create advocates for the parkway. And really, we just wanted to get out and work with folks and to have fun. So why is this study important? What's really behind this thing? The Blue Ridge Parkway is 470 miles long. It connects Shenandoah National Park with the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, really two of our most iconic eastern national parks here. The parkway extends almost 4.5 degrees longitude and 2.5 degrees latitude, giving the parkway the third largest geographic range of any national park unit in the country. And believe it or not, this scenic recreational motor road is one of the most biologically diverse units of the National Park Service. We have over 2,100 species of vascular plants, 100 species of trees, which is more trees than the entire, than all of Europe. We have 15 individual water sheds along the parkway, over 600 miles of streams and rivers, 75 distinct plant communities, and I could just keep going on and on, but you get the idea. This park, this incredibly biologically diverse park, is also one of the top most visited units of the National Park Service. Between the Parkway and Golden Gate, we kind of vie back and forth from year to year on being the most visited unit of the National Park Service. And so all these things kind of create a unique opportunity to study the biological diversity of the Southern Central Appalachians, and our humans' influence on it, our impact on it. And the question I always pose is, yes, we're a world-renowned scenic motor road, but the thing I would kind of throw out there is we are also a really interesting, unique ecological corridor from which to study, again, the biological diversity along the parkway. And so once we kind of made the determination to start the study, the next question was, how do we carry it out? There's only 4-5 full-time biologists for 470 miles of the parkway. And I really couldn't ask my other colleagues to participate, even though a lot of them want to. They've got their own projects that they're assigned to, that they can barely keep up with. And so we started looking at this concept of using volunteer citizen scientists. And citizen science really engages volunteers of all ages, many of them with little or no prior experience or scientific background in collecting scientific data. They basically work in the field, gain a deeper knowledge about the natural and cultural resources in the parks, and contribute valuable information that assists us in managing the parks. For the National Park Service, the citizen science provides a wealth of much needed baseline data about key resources and issues that we're concerned about. And again, it creates advocates for the park, which I think is probably one of the most important things that we can really be doing out there as biologists and managers of the park. So what's involved? So the way I compare citizen scientists, everyone I think is familiar with the story Tom Sawyer. And in the opening pages of the book, Tom has been tasked with his Aunt Polly with whitewashing his aunt's fence. And it's a Saturday and all his friends are headed to the river to go fishing and swimming. And he's feeling down and depressed because he can't go with them. And, after, an hour or so, feeling depressed, he decides to change his perspective a little bit. And he decides, well, what if I start acting like I'm having fun? And he starts whistling and just lapping on the paint and having a good old time and kind of laughing at his friends. I'm having so much fun. You guys are going to have to go to the river. But before too much longer, all his friends are begging and even paying him to help whitewash the fence. And that's kind of what is involved with me trying to encourage folks to participate in this project and other citizen science projects we have going on the Parkway. At one point, Tom says, "Why ain't that?" His friends say, "Why ain't that work?" And Tom's response, well, maybe it is and maybe it ain't. And that's kind of what citizen science is. It is work. It's a scientific endeavor, but there's nothing wrong that says that you can't have fun while doing science. And so what I thought I'd do is just kind of go through, what's this project a little bit, what we expect, and kind of ask of our volunteer citizen scientists. Up until this past year, we usually put on about 2 or 3 workshops a year to try to recruit folks. And, I talked to them about the project, much of what I'm doing, just like I'm doing now. We kind of walk through the project and why we're interested in doing it. All of our volunteers who agree to participate get a kit. And within that kit, they get a trail camera, maybe 2, depending on how much initiative they have. They get a steel security box, and we'll talk about the boxes here in just a few minutes. They get wrenches and bolts for mounting the cameras, a GPS unit to navigate to our study sites, a scent lure, we'll talk about, and also some spare batteries and camera cards. And this is basically what we send our volunteers out home with. We also give them 4 or 5 camera trap sites along with directions, the nearest milepost, some brief directions on how to find it. And then we also give them the coordinates they can plug into the GPS unit that they use to actually navigate to the study sites. And you can see our 2 intrepid camera trappers here. I'm getting ready to navigate to one of our trap sites. Once they get to the trap sites, they don't have to put the camera exactly where those coordinates are. We usually ask them to put the cameras somewhere within about 300 feet, about 100 meters of the coordinates. And the reason is, we never really know what the sites are going to be like once they get there. In this particular one, if you look kind of at the bottom of the right-hand corner there's a couple of huge dark green patches, and those are really rhododendron thickets. And most of those are too thick to place a camera. But if you look just a little bit to the top, we did find a place to put the camera right on the edge of that rhododendron thicket. And so we're really looking for, this is actually what the study site looked like on the ground. And so what we're really looking for is to put the cameras someplace where that's going to naturally serve the funnel, the wildlife in front of the cameras. Things like existing game trails, rock outcrops or stream drainages, ridge lines, along the top of ridge lines are a really good spot sometimes. Anything that's kind of naturally served to funnel the animals in front of our cameras. And once we pick a site, then we will mount or bolt the cameras to the trees in those steel security boxes. And so we, most of the times we ask our volunteers to put the cameras about 12 or 18 inches off the ground. Sometimes we have to go a little bit higher depending on the topography. Sometimes we may have to put a stick behind the box to kind of shimmy it to kind of level out the camera a little bit because the trees are never perfectly level. And this is why it's really important that we use these steel security boxes. Again, this is where you want to have your volume up if you have that. So we have 2 bear cubs here that have come to check out our cameras. And this happens in almost every camera trap where we get a bear. They are really incredibly curious animals. They will check out anything new in their environment. And so between the scent lure and probably our scent that we inadvertently place on the cameras, they're going to rub up against it. They're going to paw at it. They're going to try to tear it off the tree. And our very first camera that I mentioned lasted about a year before the bears tore it off the tree and chewed it to pieces. And so the steel security boxes are really a must-have anytime we place a camera out there in the woods. The next thing we ask our volunteers to do is to put a few drops of a scent lure about a 10 to 15 feet in front of the camera. And it's not so much to attract the animal. Again, if we're putting the camera in the right spot along a game trail, the animals are going to move in front of the camera, but the scent lure is going to allow the animals to stop, sniff around for a minute so we can get a good photo that we can use to confirm the identity of that animal. And you can see, we're just asking them to place maybe 1 or 2 teaspoons maximum on a log or on a tree or a branch somewhere, just about 10 or 15 feet in front of our camera. And the scent lure worked. Everyone wants to see pictures of bears. For me, the coyotes and the foxes are really some of the more interesting, animals that we get because they do interact with the scent lure. If anybody has dogs out there, your dog likes to roll in the stinky stuff they can get in your backyard. And so the coyotes roll around in the scent lure. We used to, initially when we first started this project, we asked our volunteers to put a stick in front of the camera and then put the scent lure on the stick, but the coyotes almost invariably would carry away the stick. So that didn't work. And so we got rid of the sticks and just asked them to place it on a log or a tree. Again, a lot of times the coyotes will bring their friends. Coyotes aren't the only things that attract to scent lure. We get cattle, we get deer. It's amazing what will stop by to check out the scent lure. Sometimes it's not enough that we put the scent lure out there. The coyotes and the foxes sometimes like to leave their own scent on our camera traps. And so this is what you see. Again, this is pretty common. It's pretty typical anytime we get coyotes or any of the canids visiting our trap site. This is pretty standard behavior. And so the reward for all this work, and believe me, it is work, having to navigate to these sites and bushwhack through the woods. Every 3-4 weeks, they check the cameras, our volunteers check the cameras, and they get to download photos to their computers and see what's, basically visited this trap sites. This is kind of the carrot and stick that we provide our camera trappers. And it's a pretty good, I think it's a pretty good reward. It's kind of like Christmas. You never know what you're going to get. That's what I was going to walk you through. We're not going to look at all the photos, but this is one of the trap sites from 2 years ago that we'll just kind of really quickly go through and see some of the photos that we collected. The other thing I didn't mention is after they set the cameras and turn them on, we just ask our trappers to walk in front of the camera so it creates a timestamp that records, when the camera was set up and the date and the time. So I have a record of it. And so our trapper put the scent lure right on the log next to the tree stump next to the log. And so we got a bear already visiting the site and checking out the scent lure. And then we white-tailed deer. And we have an opossum. And again, everything stops and checks out the scent lure. And sometimes they rub up against the camera. Raccoons. And I like the logs. I really like putting the cameras overlooking logs because the animals do walk across and navigate across those logs, even without the scent lure. Wild turkey, mammals are certainly not the only thing we get. We get quite a bit of birds. This is a barred owl. If you look right in front of the camera, I'm not sure if it necessarily attracted the scent lure, but it certainly stopped for a moment and the camera caught it. The barred owl again a few minutes later. I think this is a fox squirrel. Red fox is not a great picture, but you can see the black stocking on his leg, the black marking on his leg. That's pretty typical red fox. Raccoons. The raccoons, females with kits, do certainly get out and walk around during the day. They're not just nocturnal. We see them on these cameras all the time, early in the morning and late in the evenings. Another fox squirrel. I'm a spike buck. And this is a hawk. It's probably a broad-winged hawk, but this is about the best picture we got of it. We only got the wings, but since I couldn't confirm the identity, it just went down as a hawk species. Another raccoon. Probably another raccoon. And finally, toward the end of our camera trap session, we had a coyote show up. And again, everyone likes the bears, but I think the coyotes have some of the best behavior that we see on these cameras. This one just kind of lied down. And then the end of our session, the camera trapper again walks across the camera's field of vision, so we had that timestamp of when the trapping session ended. And so this is kind of a summary of this particular camera trap. It was called Payne Creek. It was located in Floyd Canyon. I'm not going to tell you exactly where it was, but it was located about an elevation about 2,600 feet. It ran from August 29th through October 4th, 2019. A little bit longer than the 3 weeks we usually ask, but sometimes, understandably, our camera trappers have lives, and the weather sometimes impacts, when they check these trap sites. And so we collected a total, just a little over 1,500 images, total images on this particular trap site. Of those 1,500 images, there were 117 actual distinct, unique visits or detections of 12 species of animals. Gray squirrel and white-tailed deer were the most common detections that we caught in this particular camera trap, followed by opossum, fox squirrel, and raccoon. We had 3 bear visits, and of course the one barred owl and our unknown hawk, and the coyote and the red fox. So overall, pretty good haul for this particular for a camera trap site. 12 species is pretty good. 6 we average probably about 5 or 6 at these sites. Just a few results so far. We've deployed about 150 of these trap sites. But not counting last week, obviously with the pandemic, we had to take a pause last year. I think I only set out about 20 sites, and we weren't allowed to have any volunteers last year working on the Parkway, at least not within the window that we were able to run this, that we typically run these traps. We've collected a little over almost 52,000 photos of 39 species of animals. We've run these traps for about almost 4,300 individual days. About 5% of the traps we've had battery issues or camera malfunctions. It's pretty typical for these cameras. We've had about 3,600 unique events or detections. And I was going to run through real quick just some of the detection rates that we got for some of the animals. White-tailed deer, unsurprisingly, were our most common animal. We detected about 90% of our camera trap sites. They were most abundant in probably our middle elevations were about between 2,500 and 4,000 feet. And I think we had about 1,200 total detections. Again, not surprising at all with white-tailed deer. Black bear, we detected at almost 70% of the trap sites. That was a little bit more higher than I think I suspected we would get. And about 350, I think, total detections. Bears, again, are everyone's favorites. They never fail to surprise us. We get the bear in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm not sure what it was doing, whether it was rubbing up against the scent lure or just literally looking to take a nap. But again, some pretty interesting photos with these cameras. Coyotes, about 65% of the site. Again, this was a little bit higher than I think I would have suspected, but it really does go to show you how the coyotes have adapted and moved eastward over the years. Raccoons, about 60% of the site. These were most common in our lower and middle elevations. We only got maybe 1 or 2 detections, I think, above 4,000 feet. Gray squirrel, we're only detected about 50% of the sites, but overall, I think they were right up there with white-tailed deer in the total detections. I think we detected about 550 total. We had them about 550 total events or visits to our trap sites. Opossum, we detected about 43% of our trap sites, And again, these guys were only mostly present in our middle and lower elevation. I think we had maybe 1 or 2 detections in the higher elevations above 4,000 feet. These are wild turkey, obviously not one of our target animals, but they were certainly present at a good number of our trap sites. We detected about 35% of the traps. Good number of turkey poults detected as well in the bottom right-hand corner there. You see a hen with the turkey poults. Bobcat, we're right about where I expected we would be, about 1 in 4 of our trap sites. These things are pretty hard to find, even in the best of situations. They are just that shy and secretive, and that's certainly panned out in our trap sites. Though we did pick up some pretty interesting behavior. The top right-hand corner there was actually a screenshot from a video. It was about a 3-second video clip, and we were able to quite figure out what it was carrying, whether it was carrying a rabbit or maybe a bobcat kitten. We're not really sure. It just was not really good quality video, but the foxes were not detected in very high numbers at any of our trap sites. One of the things we suspect with the coyotes' eastward expansion here is that they have had an impact on our fox populations. And so we only detected red fox about 7% of the trap sites, and about 3% gray fox about 3%. So not good numbers at all. We'll be maybe looking at that further down the road. Of course, elk, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, it reintroduced elk to the Smokies about 15 years ago, a little bit more maybe. And it took them almost no time at all to travel up the southern end of the Parkway. So you can certainly see these guys, the southern 30 miles or so of the Parkway. Hintuga Spur Road is probably one of the best spots right now along the Parkway to see them at any time of the year. And so we detected them at, I think, 3 of our trap sites down on the southern end of the Parkway. And European wild hog is another animal we have, courtesy in large part to the Smokies. Unfortunately, these were introduced or accidentally escaped around the early 1900s, and they have become kind of a nuisance species. They will root up the forest floor and really have a tremendous impact on a lot of the vegetation communities in the Smokies and on the Parkway. And so this is a species we prefer not to see. And we detected, I think, about 1 or 2 of our trap sites on the south end of the Parkway. We also pick up some domestic species from time to time, especially in some of the urban areas. Dogs and cats. We picked up a fair pair of feral goats 2 years ago that actually belonged to a local farmer, and we were actually able to help them catch them based on the photos we've got at this trap site. We've had a number of our camera trap sites set up in some of our agricultural tracts, and so it's not unusual for the cattle to park themselves for an hour or 2 in front of our cameras, and we can burn through a whole camera car with this cattle in just a couple of days sometimes. And so in this case, we do sometimes have to ask our camera trappers to just have to check the cameras in between a little bit more frequently at some of these sites. Probably our rarest animal that we've caught on our camera traps are the eastern spotted skunk. Everyone, of course, knows the striped skunk. They're common in most all of our backyards in urban, suburban areas, as well as some of the more remote sections of the park. What most folks don't know about this is the eastern spotted skunk. These guys are about the same size as the gray squirrel. They are very rare and declining for reasons we really don't understand, but we have detected them at a couple sites along the Parkway. And so we are actually going to be doing some targeted camera traps probably in the future aimed at just specifically trying to detect more of these guys. Just some really quick results. This is just results by state between breaking it by Virginia and Carolina. There really wasn't a huge difference except maybe white-tailed deer were a little more common in Virginia. I think detected by elevation was a little bit more interesting. Again, opossum and raccoon were a lot less common in their higher elevations. And certainly for the opossum that have pretty naked feet, the cold temperatures and the sub-zero temperatures that we have during the winter months, might probably plays a factor in that. And again, the foxes were only detected in the low and middle elevations, nothing in the high elevations. The question I always get is, when's the best time of day to see bears? And well, so I plotted out, the detections, the time of day that we detected black bears as part of this project. And you can kind of see there's two that times that really kind of stood out, 7 and 8, 9 o'clock in the morning here on the left. And then again at 5, 6, and 7 o'clock at night. The time that you said at the bottom are all in 2400 time. And so 1800, 1900 is 8 o'clock, and there is 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock respectively. Sorry about that. So if you want to see bears along the Blue Ridge Parkway, early morning and late evenings are the best time, though they are certainly active pretty much 24 hours a day. So just some unexpected results, some other results. We picked up a lot of bird species. I was really surprised. 25 species of birds. I think it's probably higher than that now. Just tons of bear and wildlife interactions. And of course, just like any good series, there's always, if it's really successful, there's a spin-off. And so one of the projects that's kind of spun off from this larger project are these bear bathtubs. And basically we're placing a couple cameras at artificial and natural water sources along the Parkway. We've got 2 sites that we're using right now. One is a spring that was developed as part of an old farmstead, probably in the early 1800s on the left. And then the next one on the right is it's a natural bear wallow that bears have kind of created over time on their own. And we've kept a lot of unique natural history. Bears drinking, bathing, just rolling around, frolicking, some cubs, some interactions between some yearling bears. And I just got a couple real quick video clips. I know we're running short on time, but I do want to make sure we get these out for everybody to see. This is a sow and 4 cubs at the farm spring. And again, this is just a kind of really cool behavior that we can pick up with these cameras. They're just amazing what we can with these, what you can see. And the camera went it got shady, and so the camera kind of went into nighttime mode there. That's why it kind of changed from black and white to black and white there. And this is the natural bear. This is the natural spring. Again, the bears have kind of created this little watering hole on their own. When I first discovered this site about 20 years ago, this was not there. So the bears have done this over the last 10 or 15 years. And this is another sow and 3 cubs. You can see one cub up there on the top left of the photo, kind of climbing around on the tree. And then here comes mom bear kind of wandering into the photo with one of the cubs and a second one to tow. And these are actually yearlings. These are actually yearling bears. So mom and cubs hibernated together, and then these cubs in another month or two she'll be driving them off before when her breeding season starts all over again. So, but these animals have thick fur. It's very dark fur. They absorb a lot of heat during the summer, and so they're looking to escape the heat, looking to cool off. Get a little mud on them to kind of protect themselves against some of the biting insects, and really just kind of frolic around and have some fun. And so really just a real quick, we are hoping to get this project going again this year after the pandemic. We're going to be focusing on 2 areas along the Parkway, basically between Roanoke and the James River, the Peaks Water, Roanoke area, and in the North Carolina section, Downton Park and Cumberland Knob areas. And my email's there if anybody's interested. Please shoot me an email. We will be recruiting volunteers over the next few weeks, so we probably won't be having any public workshops. We'll probably be doing some one-on-one training sessions. And just a big shout out to some of our citizen scientists. The Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation, we could not have done this project without their generous funding. Springhouse Community School in Floyd, Warren Wilson College in Asheville, Wild South in North Carolina, the Virginia Master Naturalists, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Highlands Learning Center, both the Student Conservation Association, the American Conservation Experience Program have had interns that have helped us. And of course, we've had lots of park staff, volunteers, and interns have helped us over the years. And the photos and videos I showed you are really just a tiny fraction of what we've got. If you want to see more, check out our website. I'll leave that up for a little bit if anybody wants to, but please check out the website. There are just tons and tons of photos and videos on there that we've collected over the years. So that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Tom. I truly love seeing those bear videos. They make my day every time. So thank you for showing those. I just wanted to say, folks, we are a little bit over time, but if you decide you need to go, that's okay. We are recording this and you will see anything else that comes next. You will receive a link in your email to view the entire presentation again, and you're welcome to share that with other folks as well. That'll be available on our YouTube channel. We do have just a couple of questions. And again, if you do have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. We saw some folks that had their hand raised, but we can't really call on folks unless we know what your question is. So Tom, I have one question for you. Is there any initiative to study the cougar population within the park?
Well, let me start out by saying, I've worked here 30 years and I personally have never come across any mountain lions or cougars. We get reports every year. And it's certainly getting more interesting. 4 or 5 years ago, I would have said absolutely no cougars. They have, I know Eastern Tennessee, they have documented now at least a couple of mountain lions in Eastern Tennessee. But so far, we have not collected any mountain lions on any of our camera traps. And I certainly have not confirmed them on the Parkway or anywhere that I know of in Virginia or North Carolina, at least. So, we do get a lot of bobcats. We do get a lot of young coyotes that sometimes look like mountain lions that fool us for a little bit, but so far no mountain lions or cougars.
Great, good to know. Someone just asked if you can post your email address again. So maybe if you hop back to the previous slide, we can leave that up for some folks who want to participate. I will tell you, I did participate one summer and it was amazing. It was really like Christmas morning when you got to look at those photos and find out what had crossed in front of you. We have one, it says, what kind of scent lure do you use and do you experiment with a variety?
We use a trapper scent lure, and again, we only use a very small amount. We only instruct our camera traps to use a very small amount. We're not looking to attract them necessarily, but it's just a general scent lure. And we are going to probably start experimenting with some other varieties. I mentioned the Eastern Spotted Skunks. One of the ways, there's a couple of animals that we haven't really picked up at all from this project. And one is the striped skunk, which is surprising because they are very abundant out there. The other one is the mink. We haven't really picked up either one of those 2 species. And so we are maybe going to look at trying some other scent lures and see if that makes a difference.
Oh, great. And I'll have one more question. How about armadillo? Have you seen any armadillo on the Parkway?
We actually recorded our very first armadillo on the south end of the Parkway about a month or 2 ago. Lily McElrath and one of our rangers down at Spruce Pine, down in the Pisgah district, actually recorded, actually saw one. Great Smoky Mountains actually documented one on one of their camera traps last summer, but we haven't actually officially got one on our camera trap yet. But we'll be setting out some more cameras that probably down there, if not this year, then certainly next year, and probably looking to try to get some armadillos on that. But yeah, we this year, really cool.
That's exciting. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, you'll be able to see, you'll get a link to this webinar, and we will try and answer some of those questions that maybe we weren't able to answer live. And we will have this video available on our YouTube channel. If you subscribe, you'll get a notification every time there is a new video. And we do these every first Tuesday of the month. So we hope you'll come back for more. And we hope you have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.